Okay.
I'm Al Kwasikpui. I live in Seaboard in Northampton County. I'm retired. I was a judge for about 20 years. Still have my law license, but I don't practice. I became involved in this endeavor to fight coal ash as a result of being asked by the chairman of our local branch of the NAACP. And that's how I got involved and I wanted to use the expertise I had to help the community in which I live.
All right. Thank you.
My name is Wanda Flythe. I'm an RN, retired. I live in Conway, North Carolina, which is in Northampton County. And I was approached by the executive team and asked if I would help them with their coal ash fight, and jumped right on board, and glad I did.
Hi, I'm Joseph Flythe. I live in Conway, Northampton County. I'm retired from Georgia Pacific Chemicals, and I got involved at the same time Wanda did for the same reasons.
I'm Warren Heitzenrater. I'm the pastor at Jackson Baptist Church. I heard from folks that I knew that this thing was beginning, and had a sense about how I felt about coal ash and all kinds of environmental problems, and the opportunity to get involved with an issue that was going on with people that I trusted and people that I knew and people that I cared about, and also not having to spearhead it. So often in the church you're the cheerleader, and to be able to work sort of behind the scenes and just supporting folks who were doing that kind of thing really had an appeal.
Joyce, Buffaloe, County Commissioner-elect. At the time that I learned about Vista Green, I was caregiver to my mother, and when she received the letter in the mail that was addressed to both my late father and my mother, and she didn't understand what it was, and I read the first paragraph, and I knew coal ash is something that was bad, that we didn't want in Northampton County, and in Margarettsville, just up the road from where I live. I contacted Tony Burnette and said, Tony, what do you know about this place, this company called Vista Green, wanting to build coal ash facility in our county? And that's pretty much how it got started.
Hey, my name is Tony Burnette. I'm the president of the Northampton County branch of the NAACP. I'm also a retired police officer. And this matter was brought to me by Miss Joyce Buffaloe as a complaint filed with the local branch of the NAACP here in Northampton County. And from that portion of it, we was able to get the ball rolling, got some key people on board, and the rest is history.
Well, from what I understand, from being just involved a little bit with you guys, it's quite a history, and it sounds to me like you guys pretty quickly built a coalition of people who had the same interests, and so you were able to work together. And you also had some legal mechanisms in terms of zoning that, at least at the beginning, it seemed like you had to go. Vista Green was supposed to be going for a special use permit, but it turned out that wasn't exactly the case. Is that true? Or I've read things in the papers, but I'm not quite sure about that, so I need you to clarify that.
I know when this thing first started, they had two citizens forum, which gave us the opportunity to meet so many people, so many wonderful people, and those forums was held in the town of Seaboard. That gave us an opportunity to meet people, to get a sign-up sheet, to phone numbers in order to call people, and yes, it was. And come to find out, when this letter was sent out by Vista Green originally, it was mistakenly sent out. So we contacted the county commissioners during the county commissioners meeting, at which time they tried to deny that letter was sent out, which really upset the people in the meeting. I'd say at that meeting we probably had about 40, close to 40 citizens went with us to that meeting. And we caught our local officials in a lie, trying to cover this thing up, saying that it wasn't true.
So were you not, they weren't going to really send you a letter? They weren't even supposed to send one?
Not at that particular time. Those letters supposedly came out later, and they sent them out prematurely early.
God works in mysterious ways.
Yes, he do. One of the things our branch, and I got to bring this up about the NAACP here in Northampton, we're very engaged in the community, and we don't mind putting boots on the ground. We don't mind calling an ace a ace and a spade a spade. I had the opportunity to reach out to Mr. Gary Grant. Mr. Gary Grant is well known in the Roanoke Valley area, Northampton and Halifax, which he was involved in issues dealing with hog farms back in the 70s and 80s. So I wanted to try to find people that knew how to fight and what to do. At that time, Gary Grant told me about a couple, Mr. Ferruccio and Miss Ferruccio, to contact you guys that you had been involved in a landfill fight over there, which I did. During that time, at the same time, our NAACP meetings were filled, at least 70, 80 people in each meeting. I knew we needed someone on the team that knew the law, that knew how to address the laws. And the number one person that I thought of, I've been in front of him so many times in court, and I knew that the whole county had nothing but respect for him. And that was Judge Kwasikpui. And I knew going into a fight that you have to talk to people to try to win people over to your cause, to the cause that you feel is right. And that's what I did with the judge. I talked to him and I told him about this thing and how important it was to help us, and something pricked him in the heart. And he got on board with this thing, and him and Debbie and the whole team has been on this thing ever since, calling up people, Wanda and Joe and Pastor, and been really getting people involved, and that has brought us together. Debbie David, and I gotta say this, Debbie is a chemist. So we had a court judge, we had a chemist. We had
Debbie
Wanda.
couldn't be here tonight.
Absolutely.
But she is the other co-chair of this
Yes.
executive
And
team.
the landowner.
Yes.
And a
Yes.
landowner that's nearby, yes.
Yes. Wanda, which an artist that could write and could tell our story. So we had someone that could tell our story on paper. Somebody that could tell our story on paper, and that's how important it was.
She's written recently
Yes.
some that she sent me. She's very good at writing letters, and that's how you get people to understand, is through the stories as you tell them.
Definitely.
You're a
Definitely.
great writer.
Definitely.
Well, Judge, what happened after Tony got a hold of you?
After Tony,
Oh, that's a big question.
brought me out of retirement.
I was just going to say that, actually.
Used to weigh 300 pounds.
Initially, we had to educate ourselves about coal ash. We had heard, I guess, varying stories in the newspaper about coal ash in different parts of the country, but we didn't know specifics about it, so we had to learn about this. And we did just things as simple as Googling it, going on the internet and learning and reading about coal ash. Then you all helped us out tremendously, helped us by creating a video that allowed the word to go out, where if people could not attend the meetings, they could still go on YouTube, they could go online, they could read about coal ash in an understandable manner. And so we had the community meetings. We decided we would meet on the first Friday of every month at 6:30. Our meetings would last 1 hour, and we moved the meetings throughout the county. We would meet in different towns throughout the county and educate folk. And we had different number of people that would come to the meeting. And then after that first phase of educating ourselves in the community, then we moved into a more hands-on phase. During the first phase, I do want to mention, though, we began to make the county commissioners aware of our thoughts, sentiments, and our dissent to any coal ash coming to our county. And that was important. And we had Wanda came up with a postcard campaign, which was fantastic. We sent postcards to every commissioner, and we sent over 2,000 to every commissioner. So each commissioner received over 2,000 postcards, had the same message: we don't want coal ash in Northampton County, and it was signed by different citizens. The citizens would sign their names and then put their address in Northampton County, so the commission would know that these people were vested in our county. We had petitions.
You must have done fundraisers to just pay for that postage.
We paid out of our pockets.
You paid it out of
We
your
paid
pockets.
it out of our
All right,
pockets.
I get that.
Yeah, we just
Been
didn't-
there and done that.
We just didn't have the time at that point.
Right, to do the fundraising.
fundraising. When we looked to more hands-on activity, we had asked the citizens to come and help us with the petitions. The simple things is counting the signatures on the petition. We had over 1,400 signatures, and we just allocated, handed them out to different folks, and they counted them up, and they felt a part of this.
Right.
We always, during our meetings, have a time for people to give input, and they got a chance to talk, and that helped make them feel a part of this effort. We did a post and essay contest for youth within the county, and the citizens helped with that. Some of them graded the posters and the essays and things like that, spread the word, things like that. So that was good. That led up to the citizens turning out for the public hearing before the county commissioners. And that's where zoning helped us. We have comprehensive zoning in Northampton County. Zoning gave the people a voice in this process. And I say that because the zoning requires that it be a public hearing. Before the commissioners could vote whether to grant a special use permit or whether to rezone the property from agricultural residential to heavy industrial, there had to be a public hearing. Now initially, when Vista Green first came before the county, they sought a special use permit. Due to the opposition, they withdrew that request for special use permit. And they claim they're going to educate the citizens as to the misinformation that was being disseminated. That's what they claim. Well, we utilize this time to provide the citizens with information about coal ash. And we also said one other thing. You could always look it up yourself. That's what we would tell folks. That they didn't have to rely upon what we said. They could go to their computers and they could look up coal ash themselves and form their own opinion. And so that was helpful. When it came back the second time, the Planning and Zoning Office informed Vista Green that they would have to apply to have the land rezoned first from agricultural residential to heavy industrial. And if they were successful in that, then they would come back and apply for a special use permit.
Okay.
And so, but that the zoning ordinance gave us input through that public hearing.
Wow.
So are you saying that had it not been for the zoning, they simply could have come in with the bulldozers and started work?
If it hadn't been for the zoning ordinance, there would not have been a process whereby the commissioners would have to okay or approve or deny them either obtaining a rezoning or getting a special use permit, which required that we have a voice. That's lawyer speak to say, yes, you're right. They could have come on in and they could have started. They just could have come in and started building their facility on their land. But because we had the zoning ordinance, which was enacted in 1994, there was a process whereby the Vista Green Corporation, these outside investors, had to come before the county commission, which through the ordinance was required to receive input from the citizens.
So the opposition of the citizenry was there, but the mechanism really was in place in
Yes,
order that those voices
That's right.
could
Yes,
be
sir.
effective.
That's right. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, if there were over 300 people at the public hearing with signs opposing coal ash. Numerous people would sign up to speak opposing coal ash. And the commissioners, if they didn't know before, they certainly knew then, the opposition of the county, the sentiment of the county. But I'm confident they knew before then because of all the work that the team had done and all the work that the citizens had put into this effort.
Joyce, can you tell us about how this situation changed for you? Because you were you're the one that your mom got the letter, mistakenly apparently, and then the ball started rolling. You called Tony, Tony calls the judge, and here you are now a county commissioner elect. What happened?
Well, at the time, when my mother received the letter, I was concerned that how do we live with coal ash? We can't live here with coal ash. And I was very thankful that Tony said, get me a copy of that letter, and I did immediately the same day, and we talked about it, and he gave the support and the concern that yes, this is something we have to look at. We have to be concerned about. We have to be involved with what is Vista Green really trying to do with this 852.45 acres of land that they had purchased. So with that and with all the support that I was receiving with getting the information out, it gave me the hope that we really could beat this by working together as citizens in Northampton County. And that's exactly what we did.
Well, you did more than that. You ran for public office and won, which, I mean, that's spectacular because that's what people dream of all over this nation, is that we can have people that represent us in office who actually represent what we believe in and what we want. So, I mean, I think you are like the top celebrity.
I don't know.
Period.
I don't know if I want to be a top celebrity.
I'm kidding.
I'm just very, I'm very concerned about our county. And even when I was born and raised here and I moved away, but 25 years later returning, not a whole lot had changed in Northampton County. So I was even telling Deborah there were certain parts of the county, as a black young girl, I couldn't even go in. But now, and to have the county, black and white, come together to fight this issue is very important. We see that we can live together and work together because we do have the same concerns. We want to be healthy and happy and living peacefully in our county. But we don't need coal ash. And that's what we were fighting against. And we're continuing the fight. With any issue that comes on board this day forward, we're still going to look at and work through it together.
Well, for many years, they've wanted us to be divided racially. And when it comes to the environment and our health, it's one of the things that people understand. We're all the same.
Yes.
And that's the sad thing, that it takes this sometimes, but that's also the beautiful thing, is that a group of people here, white, black, are together. And nobody has stopped that. Nobody has been able to divide your community and keep it down. And that's why racism has existed all along. It was always economic. It's always been about dividing us so that the economic, elite can do well. And so this little county here is totally an enigma and actually an inspiration. And the more we can share your story with people, the more hope people are going to have.
And you're absolutely right. I'm happy. I am so happy that we came together, and I hope that our story would be a story that will empower others and let people know that if you come together, if you work together, that you can move forward. And for me, I remember I met Reverend Warren maybe about 3-4 years ago.
Oh, longer than that.
Longer than that?
Yes.
Maybe.
It was about food back then.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And one of the key things that we talked about was, how do you bring white and black people together? And I'll never forget that. Never. And we talked on that, and we talked on it, not knowing that God had his own hands in this, and he had his own plan to bring the people in Northampton County together. We never knew it would be coal ash. But at the same time, we was ready, and he had people in the right places to come together. And I ask myself this question all of the time, that we have so many people dying in this country from cancer. Cancer has never been this prevalent as it is this day.
No.
in 2018 that every family in America has been touched by cancer. So that tells you right there that something is going on in our nation with our land that's not right. And to go back to what the conversation was on earlier on zoning, having zoning in place, because especially on small county, tier 1 county, predominantly African American counties, you have those big companies are looking to move in and come in and bring stuff that we really don't need, stuff that will harm us instead of help us. So I just wanted to get that out there.
Yeah, there's been an effort over the last several decades to take advantage of tier 1 counties because they're economically distressed already, and they come in and tell you, well, you need jobs. Any kind of job is better than no job. And that's not true, particularly if you're the person working in that, or if you're the farmer farming next to that and they tell you can't sell your sweet potatoes because of coal ash. So you're right. At the heart of all this is environmental degradation. And I know that just recently, Reverend Barber, the past president of the NAACP for North Carolina, and now the co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign, he's been talking about environmental degradation and how the poor suffer from it more than the well-to-do.
You're right. I'm glad you brought it up about jobs. Wanda, if you would tell the group about the research that you did on how those so-called jobs that Vista Green said they would bring in, how they affected people.
Yeah, they're when they had the spill in Tennessee.
2008.
In 2008, the men who went to work there, many of those men have since died, and we have had interviews with some of the people who were still living, and learned how. I mean, as a nurse, I take care of sick people, and these people were severely impacted by their exposure to coal ash. You breathe it in, it gets in your lungs, you can't get it out, it destroys lung tissue, it gets in your bloodstream, it gets in your, it shows up when they do labs. Some of these chemicals and things that are specific to coal ash show up in those people's bloods, and their blood diseases, anemias, their cancers, their tumors. It's just the heavy metals in the coal ash affect the entire body. There's so many poisons and so detrimental to people. Those people working in that coal ash in Tennessee, they had no protections. They were told that this coal ash was safe. And that's one of the things that the people who are trying to sell coal ash to your community keep talking about how safe it is and that the jobs are safe, but they are not. Anybody who is around coal ash, they're not safe. This stuff is in the air. It's like fine powder, thin, like talcum powder, hoofs up, and you breathe it in, you don't even realize.
So basically, there's really no good argument other than we're going to bring you jobs, but they're jobs that you wouldn't want your son, your sister, your brother, nobody.
You would not want your worst enemy. You would not want your worst enemy working in these jobs.
Yeah.
And the zoning, I think, is really important because the zoning allowed us as citizens through our county commissioners to keep this very harmful industry from coming into our county. We're not opposed to industry, we're not opposed to jobs, but it lets us keep those very harmful types of industries out of our county. And that's what's so important about zoning. So,
Well, I really want to let you guys know that this has been wonderful for me to be able to share with you guys. I talked to some of those coal ash people, and I want you to know that the wife of one of the workers, his name was Ansel, he's got a blood disease. she said, I light a candle every day and pray for the people of Northampton. Every day, because she knows what it's like to live with going to the doctor 3 to 4 times a week. They go. Their life has been, as they knew it, destroyed. He's not dead yet, but they're adding plaintiffs every week. There's another plaintiff added to this case. And there's, it was starting with maybe 30, then it was 70. Now it's, I don't know how many people right now, but it's going up and up and up, the number of plaintiffs. And they keep continuing it in court because they don't want this case to be tried in a court, because this is the most comprehensive look at what coal ash does to people, with the most case studies of all these people, their health records, all of it. So you guys can pray for these people, because their case will be monumental if it ever gets into the courtroom. And they know that there's a problem with coal ash all over this country. It's the second waste stream in the United States next to regular trash. But they also know that creating one problem and moving it to another is not the answer either. So they want the people of Northampton to not have to do that. And I've never met this woman. She says, Deborah, I love you. I want to meet you. And I know she feels the same way about all of you guys, because she just understands through personal pain and experience why you don't want this, and why it's no place to work. It's no place, you know, it's not an industry that will help your community. And so, you know, you guys really are, like a beacon to, and going to be, because the coal ash problem is central to energy, climate change. All of it is tied together, and there are no easy answers, but creating answers by dumping on the poor has never solved anything, particularly since there's so many poor people. You know, if the poor were 1% and it were the opposite, we could just find one place to dump on. It'd be simple. But there's so many of us that are poor in so many communities, they've dumped all over the earth now. And so this story right here in Northampton may just be a seed that helps communities that you'll never know, that will maybe draw a line in the sand that saves their community. And what they say about our future in terms of saving the planet is that it's going to be one community at a time. And with the internet, this community here can be known all over the world. It may not be known all over the world yet, but I think it will be, because there's so few good, happy stories and this one is a happy story in that, you know, the vigilance is never over. We know that.
Absolutely.
And when they own the property, it's never over.
You're right.
But it doesn't mean, even if they didn't own the property, there's somebody else that will try to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
But if I were anybody trying to do ugly, I would not come to Northampton County. Not anytime soon. I would say, you know what, I'm going to try somewhere else, because these people have united, they have educated themselves, and they have elected new people into office. So they have a future based on so many good things, not just grassroots efforts, but now actually a county government that represents the people. So my hat's off to you and many people as well.
Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you.
know, we were talking about zoning, and you know, the fact that in this case, you know, it was just kind of the thing, you know, that allowed it to happen. It wasn't the energy behind it, but it was like saying, does anybody have a key to this door? Does anybody have a key to this door? And zoning was the key to the door. And it took a lot of people, you know, to hunt somebody up that had it, but once we had it, then you can open the door or lock the door, whichever you want to do. But I guess it's locking the door that I'm getting at. Have there been downsides to having comprehensive zoning in Northampton County? Has it, you know, it seems like there's always a downside, but in thinking about it, I'm wondering what the downside might have been. And Judge, maybe you know something about this. Have there been any situations where zoning has kept something good from happening in this county kind of the flip side of zoning saving us on this one. Have there been instances that anybody knows about, has longer history than me, where zoning did us bad?
Well, as I think about it, we have some types of industries in which some people are in favor of and some are against, and zoning hasn't kept that out, such as there are solar farms, solar panels in Northampton County. Some people have opposed that, but then some have been in favor. But nothing to the extent that is harmful as coal ash. And so we have the solar panels. We have farming operations.
The Atlantic Coast Pipeline.
The pipeline is coming through.
Yes.
So far, and so just because something just because the industry has varying viewpoints doesn't mean that zoning in our case has kept that out. And as far as I can recall, there's been nothing that has generated such comprehensive opposition as coal ash. We're pretty much united against coal ash in Northampton County.
But you don't hear people saying, "Man, I wish we'd never put that comprehensive zoning
No.
stuff in."
And one thing which Joseph Flythe did was to create a sign on wheels, and his wife would drive that sign to different towns in Northampton County announcing that public hearing, and people turned out for that. They knew this was their opportunity to be heard. This was the opportunity to speak about the coal ash, to which they were opposed, and they turned out, and so that was a good thing.
So what did you guys do? You put signs on your car, or a truck?
I had a 4x8 billboard sign kind of fall in my lap, and I got a trailer and mounted it on it, and we took it to every town in the county for 2 days at a time to advertise the planning board meeting, and then to advertise the commissioners meeting. I got it after the planning board meeting.
So you just park it and leave it there?
I just parked it and
I'm
left
asking
it.
because I got to get some of these ideas, Joseph.
Parked it. I got permission. I parked it in every town in the county. I'd leave it there 2 days, and then we'd move it to the next town. And we got permission for every place that we put it. And this was a 4x8 sign with 8-inch letters. You can see it from 200 yards away.
I like that idea.
Missing letters.
I like that idea. What are other things? I mean, when it comes to grassroots efforts, there's no one way to do it. People just think things up and start doing them.
We did a lot of different things to educate the people. We set up at different things that were going on in the county, the 4th of July event, every event that we knew about. We set up a booth and we gave out pamphlets. We told people about coal ash. We got them to sign petitions, postcards. Last year when it was time for the Christmas parades, we built a 10-foot tall Christmas stocking and mounted it on a trailer and put it in every Christmas parade in the county.
And it said, "Please, no coal."
It said Northampton County at the top, and it said, "Dear Santa, we've been good. No coal ash, please." This was a 10-foot tall red Christmas stocking.
I got to have a picture of that.
Oh, that's good.
I got to get a photo of
We
that.
put it in every Christmas parade in the county. We threw candy.
No coal.
We had the no coal ash signs on the truck. We had the no coal ash signs on the sides of the trailer. But we educated people any way that we thought we could. We would talk to people anywhere we got a chance to talk, we would talk.
And on that note, just as early in the game when we were trying to figure out you know, we knew this stuff, but we needed the county commissioners to know it, and we needed the citizens to know it, because what the citizens don't know, they're not against. So we needed to let them know, and that's when I started writing letters. Because I said, you know, some people will read letters to the editor in the paper. They might be people who don't come to our meetings to learn, but if I can get it in the paper and it's in their hands, in their home, they can read it. So when we did write letters, or we prepared pamphlets, things like that, we tried to make sure that all of the information that we put in those letters or those writings were things that we could cite the documentation source, so that people would know where to go see it for themselves, or that, and it was especially important that the people be able to trust what we were saying, because if we ever told things wrong, then people would not trust us anymore.
Right.
So we tried to be absolutely sure of everything that we wrote, but we put the letters in the paper, and I've heard, you know, many people don't know that I was the person writing the letters, but we would go to meetings, or I'd talk to people, and they would start quoting things out of letters that I had written, and I would just agree with them. I wouldn't say, oh, well, I wrote that. That was my letter. But I was so happy to know that people were actually reading those letters. And then the postcard campaign, that was, we felt like we needed the commissioners to hear from the people. So Warren had the capability of creating these postcards in mass quantity and for little money, which I think he foot the bill for all of those postcards. But we did print the postcards with the addresses. We had 5 postcards with the 5 commissioners' addresses. And then on the back side, it had the message: we do not want coal ash in Northampton County. Postcards are cheaper mail than having to buy envelopes and the stamps. And the stamps for a postcard is less than stamps for a letter. So that was part of and plus it's so simple. And we packaged these in packages of 5, so that if somebody was willing to sign postcards to send to the commissioners, they would sign one for each of the commissioners. So all 5 commissioners were getting the same message at the same time. So when one was opening their mailbox and postcards were falling out in mass across the county, another one was opening his mailbox, and the same postcards were coming out in his lap as well. So
Did they ever try to tell you to call it off? This is enough.
they have told us, they say,
We got the
enough
point."
postcards, we don't need any more postcards. And he ran off like 10,000 postcards. And that's like 2,000 postcards to
That's half your
5
population, right?
commissioners.
That's half your population, yeah.
We did some cards to Congressman Butterfield.
Yes, we did. We
him.
sent some to Butterfield as well. Probably, what'd you say,
1,000.
1,000?
How was your method of getting these out to people? The same as when you go to meetings and to affairs
When
and
we would set up a
festivals and
booth,
stuff?
or when we had our meetings, wherever we were, we would, anybody who signed any postcards, we would take turns. You know, any signed postcards, we say, we'll mail them for you. That way we did not run the risk of people taking the postcards and they end up on the dashboard of the car, and 2 years later they're like, oh, I never did sign these postcards. So we took it upon ourselves. If
Much
they
less go
signed
buy the
postcards,
stamps.
we would take turns because it's expensive to buy all those stamps. We'd take turns and we would go buy the stamps and we'd drop the postcards in the mail. So we could be sure they got to the commissioners, and the commissioners were impacted. They were
I wanted
definitely
this
impacted.
story told because that is a phenomenal thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 postcards and actually delivered in the mailbox, not, as you said, not
Yes.
thrown away. That's
went
sort
to
of the
their
old-fashioned way of doing things. People now just do a multiple email, you know, but for a commissioner to get day after day, week after week, more and
100
more
postcards.
postcards must have they probably had bad dreams.
Some of them did.
Oh my gosh, how many did you get today?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. But see, this is what makes a grassroots effort work. It's what gives it the power that you guys thought of this and did it and didn't say, well, nobody's paying for this. I'm not going to do it. You figured it out and you just
we gotta do it.
took it out of pocket. But you know, when you think about what it costs you in the long run to have bad health, to go to the doctor, what an investment to stop
health is
it now.
priceless.
That's right.
You know, to stop this now, think of all the medical problems you solved for your for this family of yours, this whole community. You know, and mostly the doctors would be happy for you to have put them out of business.
You know, we had it was facing quite a bit of issues if that facility had got in here. Property values
Yes.
for the people here, the health impact, and the damage that it would do for the future generations coming to Northampton. And that would have basically been the end of any economic development that we was looking at trying to get to our county. And everybody sitting at this table wants to see Northampton County grow.
Yes.
It's very important to us that we grow. But with that coming in, I truly believe, and I know we talked about it before, if that facility had came to this county, we'd be getting coal ash from everywhere, overseas and everywhere else. And if we just had Hurricane Florence come through here, a month or so ago, and it was all over the news everywhere about the dams breaking during that hurricane, and that coal ash going into the rivers and whatnot, and that basically
That was,
let us all know.
that was
That confirmed.
4
Yes.
days before our commissioners meeting.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That was 4 days
Yes.
before our commissioners meeting.
That confirmed to us that we were fighting this thing, that we was in a battle. And unfortunately, the battle continues.
Yeah.
And we have to now stay vigilant more than ever because that company is not going anywhere. They have a $2 million investment still here in this county. But at the same time, we sent the message to Vista Green and any other company that's willing to try to do the same thing, that the Northampton County citizens against coal ash stands ready. And we are.
You can change your name from Northampton Citizens Against Coal Ash and whatever that would be.
Absolutely. So
Whatever.
we're here and we're not going anywhere. And we're stronger than ever. We started off with a small core group. Now we are all over this county standing strong.
You know, this table of people could be the best thing for economic development. Right here, this if we can take this message, and you guys can take this message and get this out, this will make good companies want to come here.
Absolutely.
And you know, it's really a way for you to begin to market your future, is you guys sitting around the table telling this story, because there are companies and people that want to move to these rural communities and get away from the big cities, and they want to have a quiet life, but they want a life with quality. And so I think that you guys could be the next Economic Development Commission right here. The same message that the Economic Development Commission needs. And you know, with a county that's been struggling for economic empowerment, this is the best message you can send, is that we're ready for industry, we're ready for business, but we're ready for good business, and we're ready to protect your business. We have zoning.
Well, that's the other piece, you know, if you got the zoning, it doesn't mean that, you know, you can't have a high impact industry or something like that, but it does mean that, you know, when you buy a piece of property, you know where it is, and you know what can and cannot go in next to you. You know, my parents, you were talking about Darlington, my parents live in Daytona Beach. They do not like Bike Week. They do not like Race Week, and they don't like it because of all the traffic and all the noise. But they moved to Daytona Beach, and Daytona was already there, and they knew it when they moved there. And they don't have any right going in and saying, you know, let's put a stop to this racetrack because we don't like the noise. Daytona is zoned. The racetrack is there. My parents moved in. They happen not to like the noise. They're going to stay. But zoning gives you that. So you buy a piece of property and you can look at the map and say, these are the kinds of things that can happen around me. And they're not going to be surprises. And one day you wake up and there are bulldozers next door and you don't know what's going on.
That's right, and without zoning, businesses are deterred because they don't want to put a business in and then find themselves in a situation where their property value is diminished or their product is diminished, and also, you know, in the end, as we said earlier, all of you have basically said this over and again, is that without the people, you could not have done this. With zoning and no people, they would have just, you know, they would have gone ahead and said, sure, we'll rezone this. Nobody seems to have a problem with it, fine. But the bottom line is you had the people, and the people then convinced the commissioners that this is not what we want, and they did the right thing. They listened, not necessarily right away, but if they listened right away, what kind of story would you have? Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank
again
you.
for
Thank you.
everything. Thank you
Thank
for
you, Deborah.
everything, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Okay.
All right, one thing I wanted to mention in our trying to educate the public and raise awareness, Joseph had magnetic signs, no coal ash, Northampton County signs made for his truck on each door. And on more than one occasion, we would be parked somewhere and a citizen of Northampton County would just approach our truck and say, tell me about this coal ash, and give us an opportunity. And that's how those signs need to work. And also with the signs in the yards, we had the little, what do you call them?
Yard signs.
Just little yard signs on the two little wire sticks that you sit up in your yard. We sold them at cost. We would buy them in bulk, and then we would sell them, not to make money, but we would sell them for what they cost us. But those signs started a lot of conversations.
We had 300 to 400 of those in the county.
And then the funeral home fans.
And the fans, yes, we went to a meeting, and a couple there had taken, you know, the funeral home fans that you have at church, the little fan with the stick, had created a no coal ash sign using one of those fans, which was to me just an ingenious idea. And Debbie Davis found a site online that would make these signs. So she had several hundred of those signs made.
As fans?
And fans. Ooh. And then when we would go to meetings, especially, they were powerful at meetings. So
it gets hot in those meetings.
You're at the hearing, you're at a public hearing, and you've got 300 people in the room, and they've all got these signs, and every time somebody started telling something that was not true, or somebody was, you know, saying things that people in the audience did not agree with, they would hold up their signs. They told us in the meeting, you know, be quiet, be respectful. Well, you know, that takes your voice away, but if you've got one of those signs, you...
And then if you get too hot, you're like...
Yes, the meeting gets too hot. But those signs were powerful in those meetings. It gave people in the county a voice. I think one of the things that I realized early on in this fight is that there are a lot of people in Northampton County who knew a little bit about coal ash, not a lot, but they wanted to know more. And once they learned that this was something they didn't want in their county, they wanted to know, well, what do I need to do? What can I do? That's where the postcard campaign, if you want to do something, sign these postcards so the commissioners can understand how you feel about it, because the only people who were going to have a vote, we weren't going to, as citizens, have a vote on this coal ash issue. There were only going to be 5 people in this county who were going to be given the opportunity to vote, either to allow or to disallow coal ash to come into Northampton County, and those were our 5 commissioners. So we needed to let our commissioners know how we felt, so they would know how they needed to vote.
And yard signs helped a lot in that regard too, because people would buy these yard signs that we obtained at cost, and they would purchase them, they would put them in their yards, and I noticed as our movement continued, we'd see the signs in all aspects of the county. Mm-hmm. And I was just thinking that the commissioners had to drive. As they drove around, they would see these signs in the yard. And it was significant to put the sign in yards and not on some corner near a stop sign, but in yards where people live. So that was a family there that's opposed to coal ash. Right. And that gave the commissioners something to think about as far as...
It does, because when you take ownership
right.
of a position, and, you know, as we talked earlier about in our county, countywide zoning, and people having, you know, both sides, positions on both sides, it's important that key people begin to take a position. And we've done signs. I did the first set of signs, 200 or whatever, 100 signs. I need 500 signs now, but I paid for them this time. I'll see if I do it your way and see if I can get people to do those, because I've had people say, well, you know, I don't really want one in my yard yet, meaning I'm going to wait and see what other people think. But you know, now they're like, some of them, do you have any more of those signs? Mm-hmm. So I know that we're beginning to get, you know, traction with our education campaign. But all of these little things are so helpful to hear about, because it takes so long to educate people.
Yes.
And certain people are moved by this, and certain people are moved by that. One thing, you know, the stocking at Christmas, boy, that should have gotten everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we had T-shirts.
I was going to say the T-shirts.
Yeah, that was something I think significant too. People would show up at a regular county commissioner meeting. It wasn't particular to the Vista Green issue, but they'd show up at county commissioner meeting wearing the T-shirts. No coal ash in Northampton County.
We also had quite a few teachers to come to our meetings, school teachers. Mm-hmm. And I received a lot of calls from school kids on the Facebook. And so you had people following this, people that we had no idea about. Mm-hmm. I had the opportunity to go to Nash Community College, mm-hmm. wherein it was another fight dealing with coal ash, and I got an opportunity to meet with several different counties that was fighting coal ash here in North Carolina, to see what other people was doing on this fight. And a lot of people knew about what we was doing here in Northampton. Matter of fact, it was came out in the News Observer, I want to say. Mm-hmm. So it was being followed. I know in Raleigh and places like that, I know it was being followed on what would happen here in Northampton. And I believe people are still following.
It's being followed at the headquarters of Duke Energy in Charlotte.
Absolutely.
Very closely.
Absolutely. So my thing would be to anyone that sees this video, anyone that's in the middle of a battle, and that sees wrong and want to help right it, is to reach out to others, because there's a lot of people out there that feels just like you. A lot of people in this country feel that they have no voice. And anytime you have a person feel that their voice is not being heard, you have a problem with that. And that has been one of our problems here in Northampton, that our elected officials, and I go back to that, and all 3 of our elected officials that had been in that office for quite some time got voted out this term. They got voted out because they didn't pay attention to the people. And anytime you cut off that person, you cut off their voice where they feel that they can't talk to you and you're not responding back to them, there's an issue there. With our county commissioners, when we came up to their meetings, they cut it back where we could only speak to them for 2 minutes. They would not respond to you during the meeting, and they had the audacity to bring the sheriff office into the meeting and have a deputy in the meeting, which there had never been before. And to me, that was an intimidation point. That's how I took it. I took that as an intimidation to the people by bringing law enforcement into that meeting, especially when you had no threats or anything going on, but yet you got an officer that could be on the road out of patrolling, but you got an officer inside your county commissioners meeting. And just that.
I can understand the frustration of having commissioners who, you know, okay, you've got, 5 minutes. No, wait a minute, there's too many people here. We're going to give it down 1 minute. And then at 30 seconds left, they remind you. And last time they did it to me, I said, you just interrupted me and took 15 seconds of my minute. And they laughed. They didn't laugh at me that much. They basically looked for the deputy. But I said, you know, it's really unfair that you limit us and then remind us halfway through of the minute you're giving us and telling us that we're going to tell you to stop shortly. And so your train of thought is messed up. You can't, you know, it's...
In other words, your opinion don't count to them.
Right.
They're not listening to
And then when they address the issue, just like you said, later on, it's on the agenda, you're not allowed to respond or talk, or they're going to get the deputy because, you know, so there really isn't communication. They make it look like there is because we're going to give you a minute. But communication means you speak, I listen, I speak, you listen. It's back and forth. And that's what's not happening. You know, they weren't listening. They had to have you guys spend a year and a half of your lives doing signs and T-shirts and meetings, and you had to do this to get them to listen, whereas if they actually had a meeting where people were allowed to speak, and then they were allowed to respond, and then people were allowed to respond to their response, you'd have a dialogue. And with a dialogue where both sides are actually respecting each other, you can get things done.
Absolutely.
And that's what county government, not necessarily this one, have our county government in Warren County, and yours has been too, afraid that somehow the people aren't going to be wise. They should listen to the people. The people are wise. The people know their land. They know what their world is. And so if people that are in governmental positions would start listening to the people, literally, we would come up with solutions to problems that we think are insurmountable. But they're terrified. First meeting I went to, the county commissioner, Mr. Carter, was that his name?
That's his name.
He was so mad at you.
Yes,
He
was.
said, now I have control of this commission. I've been to a state meeting and I have control here. And he looked at you like, and you, Mr. Burnette, are not going to take over my meeting. And you said, I'm just trying to give you my point of view and not be disrespectful or anything. And I could see right away that it was going to take a while for them to listen because they were defensive. And I think that, you know, I've been told our commissioners just don't like to be told what to do. And no, nobody really likes to be told what to do. But if you have a freight train coming at you, which is what you have when you have an 800 and some acre facility coming at you, and the commissioners aren't listening, then you have to do what it takes to get them to listen. And you did.
Absolutely.
You guys did phenomenally. And God bless you.
Can you tell that story real quick about the genesis of the funeral fan? How that idea started? I think it's a great story. The woman who said they told them they couldn't speak.
Can you tell the story?
I thought you told
Because
her
I'm
before.
not.
The woman, they told her that she was not allowed to speak. She would not have time to speak at the meeting, would not be able to speak at the meeting. So she showed up with her own homemade funeral fan sign with the coal ash, no coal ash on it, because she knew she would not be able to speak, but she knew that she would be able to fan. And that's where the idea came to make 300 or 500 of these things.
Yeah.
And is that the way it happened?
don't remember hearing that story, but I'm not sure who told it. I may have.
Well, you know, they always say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So when they cut you off and say, you know, sorry, you got your 1 minute. Wanda said that she came in with a poster that her granddaughter had made.
Yeah.
What did your granddaughter say in her poster?
My granddaughter spent a great deal of the summer with us, and she went to a number of the coal ash meetings with us, and she was very astute and very attentive, and she wanted to understand about this coal ash, and she listened and she learned. And one meeting, Deborah was there with a presentation, and Dylan just took it in. And she also understood that Vista Green was not always telling us the truth about the safety of coal ash, that it was not as safe as they said, that this state-of-the-art liner was not going to not ever leak, it was going to eventually leak, and there were things, and she had an idea that she wanted to make a poster, just in case we had a big meeting and we needed posters, or in case we had to march. She wanted her poster to march with. And so I got her a poster board and I got her markers, and I said, now what do you want to say? And she said, I want to say, Vista Green, don't lie to us, we know the truth. I said, okay, well that's a good poster. So I helped her mark it off. She made her poster, we rolled it up for that day. Well, the day didn't come before she had to go back home and go to school, so I promised her I would take her poster. The hearing that we attended with the commissioners, I took the poster with me, and just in case I could use it. And while we were there, so much of what the Vista Green representatives were standing up and saying, they were just not accurate facts. They were not the truth. And I thought about Dylan's poster. So when I stood up to speak to the commissioners, I took the poster and I stood it by my podium where it was in direct eyesight or view of the Vista Green crew. Vista Green, don't lie to us, we know the truth. And I never mentioned the poster, I just stood it down there for them to read. I didn't have to mention it. I went on and spoke to the commissioners, but Dylan's poster spoke to Vista Green, and I thought it was the most appropriate poster. So those things, there
The
are
seeds
lots
of
of
activism.
things. Yes, we have planted another seed of.
She's a 10-year-old and the seeds have been planted.
Yeah, because she walked around 4th of July with the Vista Green sign on.
Yes, that's right. Deborah made a sandwich sign about no Vista Green, and when Dylan was here, she was like, yes, I want to wear that. So
And you never know what pressure is on commissioners. I know that I was talking to some officials, you know, in Warren County. I was talking to the superintendent of schools, and I said, look, for 40 years they've been looking for dumping grounds. And I know I found an article once, it was 1977, the year before the PCB were dumped on the road. It said Southern governors meet at Jekyll's Island to talk about hazardous waste. It was on an island where there were no microphones. Everybody was quietly off record talking to each other. And I believe our governor sat there and said, well, we don't have industry. We don't have much going for us. North Carolina is 40th in education now. Then it was, I don't know what it was then. In our case, Warren County is 90-something in education. I mean, when you go to negotiate with the big boys in the industry, and they look at you and they go, look, you're 90-some in education. You're 98th in poverty. Your state is 40th in the nation in poverty. What do you guys have to offer us? And they're like, well, not that much. We'll take coal ash.
Well,
You know, the pressure's on these guys.
You know, Vista Green said some of the same type of language in this last hearing that we had. And the number one thing they talked about was that, number one, that Northampton County was a Tier 1 county, And we had an aging population. The average age was 65. And our citizens was dying off. Our young people was going off to college and they wasn't coming back. And to me, that was an insult to every person that lives in this county, whether they're 65 or 105. It doesn't give them the right to come here and dump that poison on us. And
Well, you sure won't get young people to stay or
you
come
won't.
here.
No, you will
And
not.
plus, if that's the only job they have, they're gonna get sick and die early anyway.
Absolutely. But that's the way,
Move out.
that is the way that big business think, that's what they think of us here.
Sure.
In Tier 1 counties, they feel that way about us. Here's the point, and the citizens made this point very well known. One of the owners, Mr. Beasley, he lives in Bertie County. Bertie County is similar to Northampton County, or Tier 1 county.
Yep.
Now, the questions that he was asked, if this facility is so great, and if you're going to create jobs, why not put this in your own home county, which is a Tier 1 county, such as Northampton? You have these so-called beautiful jobs. Why not put it in your own home county? And they have yet to be able to answer that question. I submit to you today that he didn't put it there because he has to live there. He don't live here, so he wanted to dump it on us. And I'm just so glad that we took the stand and said, no, not where we live at.
And you know, even if he didn't care about coal ash in terms of the threat to himself, because some of these people really do lie to themselves about the dangers. Even if he did that, he wouldn't want to go home every night to the relatives and friends
Absolutely.
and everybody else that would see him in the
he
grocery
wouldn't.
store and say,
No, he wouldn't.
Mr. Beasley, look what you've done to us. So,
Absolutely.
so that's why, you know, outside investors do this. The guy that sold the land for the PCB landfill moved specifically to buy the property and sell the land. He never was going to be a native who, you know, you don't want to go home and have your neighbors. You don't want to live next to the thing anyway, you know.
Yep.
Well, these things are very complicated issues. It puts commissioners in bad positions because I know when they go and meet with these industrial developers at higher levels, they're in a subordinate position. At least they feel they are because we're poor. We're among the poorest. But you know what? Poverty has nothing to do with strength and dignity. And so, you know.
If they remember one thing in those meetings, that they represent the people that they serve. They don't represent that company. They represent the people that they serve. What could I bring to my community, not to hurt it, but to help it? What will I want in my back door before they make those decisions that they make? And those are the type of people, those are the type of leaders that I would like representing me, someone that's going to think about me, my family, and the other citizens on what's going to help us, what's going to help us to thrive here in this county instead of bad industry that's going to come in here and hurt everybody here.
Well, now, Joyce, when you go find yourself in those positions, you can say what we have to offer in Northampton is that we want clean industry. We'll protect you. When you come to our community, we're going to protect good industry. We're going to, you know, that's the selling point now.
Yes.
It really is. And you have a message that, I mean, a lot of people may have these messages in other communities. You have one you fought for.
Yes,
You guys fought for this message, and that says a lot, because I know a friend of mine who's assistant economic developer in Warren County. She said, you know, for years, I don't know why we haven't gotten more crappy industry over the last 30 years. She said it's just simply that when industry's looking online, they start with a search, and they come to Warren County and they see PCB landfill protest marching, and they think, oh, no, and they move on. So when they come to Northampton, the bad guys, they're going to go, ooh, no. And the good guys will be like, yeah, you know what? This is a place I'd like to be. This is a place I'd like my children to be, because they can be looking into a future that they'll find protection. That's the goal of.
That's what we want.
That's what I know. That's what you want. That's why you're in office. That's what put you in office, is that you have that belief. And you know, we can just all hope that you influence the other commissioners, and that you influence our commissioners and other people in this region, because you know what? As times get harder, and they are going to, with climate change and things that fall apart, you know, the grid falls down, whatever it may be down the road, the catastrophe that we may face, we're going to be depending on ourselves as local people and as regional people and as neighbors. And so Ken and I feel like we've formed an alliance here between Warren County and Northampton County. We both have the same values. Our people have the same values. We can stand up and help each other. And I think as we begin to form alliances in tier 1 counties, we can say, look guys, they already passed a balance, transfer. They're going to transfer a whole lot of water south of us to Wake County. You know, that's where all the development is. Half of Car Lake water is already lined up to go south. That leaves us with what? Half of our resources. Our water is important all the way from here to Virginia Beach. But what we do have now is a growing alliance where we say no. They passed that legislation, doesn't mean they're going to get it. You know, laws change. We might have to go back and say, nope, you can't have all of our water. You know, they would like us to, they take the water, give us the waste up here. Mm-hmm. And we got to reverse that and say, you know what, we're not your dumping grounds, and you can't have all the water. You know? So that's looking into the future, but not as far as we think, you know? So I think as you know, communities, we really can form alliances. And I want to hear more about the NAACP another time, because I know you have, or Ken, if you can get a few minutes, and then we'll quit. I know I know your community is something like 58.6% African American, and ours is almost the same. And so the NAACP is an important group in your county and in our county. It might not be in everybody's county, but it's an important group, and I imagine you got young people too involved in it.
Yeah, right now, when I took over, this is my 4th year. The number one thing that when I took over and was voted in as president, the thing that I wanted to try to, the direction I wanted to try to guide the branch in was diversity. Mm-hmm. Diversity. And to build a branch, build a membership, and to be that driving force for good, and that driving force that would bring people together and that would give people a voice. Mm-hmm. To the voiceless. And it has been a lot of voiceless in our county, and it has been time for our county to have a voice and for us to move in a positive direction, but with everybody being able to be heard. And I think that's very important. Right now, I see our branch is being diverse. We have people coming on board all the time, and I'm so proud of that. I had a heart attack back in 2011. I got to share the story for anybody out there who would listen. In 2011, I had that heart attack, and that type of heart attack I had was called Widowmaker. And I had all of my arteries was blocked going to my heart, 90% blockage. And there's no reason why today I'm supposed to be living. But I knew that God had something planned and in store for my life to be able to go out and help people. I chose law enforcement as a way of life in order to try to help people. And I've served right here in Northampton County. But God had something else planned for me, and not knowing that the NAACP would be one of the things that he had, but it's something that he had in store for me. So I would like for my life to be an example, and to be able to help each and every person that I come in contact with, to be able to touch them in some way, to help things, and to go into it and to help move this county forward in every way that I can. And I think these wonderful people that surround this table, I know myself and Wanda and Joseph, and, they didn't know me until this fight started. And I'm just so glad that God brought us together. Everybody at this table has been rewarding to me in relationships and friendships that I know would last me for a lifetime, along with other people that I've met in this county.
Would that we all had a widowmaker experience.
Hey,
we
you
could all-
know,
Where do I sign up?
Yeah, no, I mean, seriously, when you think about it.
Absolutely.
When you come that close to knowing that life is ephemeral
Absolutely.
and you're not gonna last forever, we all know it, but you don't know it in that same way.
Absolutely.
Most everybody would live differently.
Absolutely. You know, and you say, the number one thing I thought in my mind during that whole time was, what had I did with my life and who had I helped? And I had a lot of opportunities to help, but at the same time, it's being able to touch another life. I feel that life for me is all about helping others, that God had put each and every one of us here for a reason. And for me, that reason is to help others. And that's how I live my life now. And I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud to be in this fight for what I know is right.
I sometimes try to picture out, how does God engineer it all? How does God engineer that Tony needs to be in this place at this time? Of course, it's a little beyond my imagination to really figure it out, but I think about some computer and I think, okay, this person's got to be, he's got to have almost a heart attack that's going to take him, then that's going to move him to be over here. Joyce, on the other hand, she's going to be living here, her mother's going to get a letter, and I'm picturing like some movie. How does this person's life move in and this person's life move in here? Everybody converging at this time where simultaneously you're all in the right place at the right time when you're needed.
Yeah.
Only God could do that.
Yes.
Seriously, only God could do that. Without overstating that, only God could do that.
And I always tell the people, when I start off telling this story, I always tell the people about Judge. Judge had retired. He's sitting back on his couch, which was well deserved.
And enjoying his westerns.
Enjoying his western after
you have to do that with Ken.
After 20 years on sitting on that bench, and he's enjoying himself. And here I come with this issue, asking him, Judge, will you come with us? Will you get in this fight? And he thinks about it, and he ponders that thing. I remember this, Tony, I'll get back with you. You want to commit to me at that time?
Oh, it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah.
A lot of work.
But we needed you.
Yeah, we did.
It's been
Absolutely.
good. We were sitting, as we were talking about this struggle, it's been good in that it has brought citizens in Northampton County together that otherwise probably would not have been together.
No.
And we didn't have reason to cross each other's paths to the extent that we have.
Tell about Debbie. Tell about Debbie.
Oh yeah, Debbie Davis. We both live on Washington Street, and I live on one end of Washington Street. She lives on the other end of Washington Street, and I think I probably seen her, but I did not know her. And Tony appointed us co-chairs, and we talk all the time. I've come to know her husband, come to know her children, her grandchildren. She knows about my children and hears stories about my grandchildren, and Warren and Wanda and Joseph, just folk that we talk on a regular basis. We meet on a regular basis, and we would have probably maybe seen each other in passing in Northampton County, going
I
on
only saw
158.
you as a judge.
Not to the extent that we have, and so that's been good. And blacks and whites working together.
Yeah.
It is. It's phenomenal.
And we don't
The feeling.
And one thing which we done, we don't focus on politics.
Yes.
We don't care what you're registered as, what party you're registered. We're just united in fighting coal ash, and I think adverse industries coming to our county that are going to be hazardous to our people and to our county and our quality of life. And that's what we focus on. And that's brought us together, that's kept us together. So we're still meeting, so that's been good that we've been able to focus on those type of things and just become really good friends. Really good friends. And
Powerful.
that,
Early on in this, I can't remember what place we were at, but Debbie had forgot to bring one of the signs with her. The judge hadn't left home yet. She called the judge and told him to go to her house and go in. He said, "Debbie, you want me to go in your house?" She said, "The door's not locked. Just go in and get the sign."
we had to talk about this.
But he went in and got it and brought it.
But see, that is so simple, but so telling. That
We've learned,
that
and we've learned about our cultures because we would meet and talk about doing this thing or that thing. We'd say, "Wait a minute, white people don't do that. White people don't do that. We need to rethink this." And then I've learned a lot about the black culture and things that how they function as a culture, and it has really opened a lot of doors and brought us all together in a very special, in a way that would not have happened without this coal ash fight.
Years later, I can run into people in Warren County who were involved in the PCB movement, and it's as if you were soldiers in the same trench.
Yeah.
And it's like,
That's a
"Oh,
great
Deborah,
analogy.
do you remember whatever it is?" Or I'll look at them and I'll say, "I know your name, but you mark what," and then they'll say, "Yeah, I know you're a Ferruccio, that I do know." But it's this camaraderie that is unbelievable because you both, whoever was involved, experienced something that was like being in a trench together. And you depend on each other as you do in a war. You need each other. And out of that need, you become comrades in the deepest way, so that when you see each other and hail each other 40 years later, it's like, "Dude, your number's so-and-so. Oh my gosh." And we start talking about this or that or whatever it is. And it's more meaningful to me than about anything that all of my life, I've had a lot of good experiences. I've taught students. I have great relationships. But it's those relationships that we experienced where people who usually, kids sit in the lunchroom, black, white, over here, there's always been this separation. Even when people have thought they were integrated. We're integrated, but there's black church and a white church. Or there's, white people sitting here at the lunch table, black kids sitting at the lunch table. And this was not that. This was the fullest integration of human beings that you could have. And I guess that would be what would happen in a trench too.
Yes.
Because in a trench you wouldn't be looking at color, you'd be looking at how do we help each other through this. And so maybe that's why you have this heightened sense of meaning. So that I would have to look back on my life and say that the most meaningful thing I've ever done has been in the trenches with other people, including you guys.
I know for myself, this taking on this fight, it consumed me. I was definitely consumed. I'm calling the judge all the time. We call them back and forth, bouncing stuff and just being consumed with this coal ash. And
Well, it's like we had a common enemy, and the enemy was threatening our lives, and we were, like you said, in the trenches, dependent on each other and looking at each other to how do we fight this enemy.
Yes.
Well, one of the reasons it's so nice to be with you guys is because Ken and I have been in the trenches alone lately. Because this racetrack hit us particularly, and everybody's like, well, whatever. And so wherever I go, I'm like trying to push for countywide zoning because I can't change the racetrack through that, but I can help stop the problem, as it could continue and grow and get worse. I can be at a birthday party or whatever. I'm like, what do you think about zoning? And I'm not going to back off. My sister's like, oh, Deborah. I said, look, you own this land. I told my brother the other day, or my sister, she goes, well, you know, I can't make it to your meeting. I said, this isn't my meeting. This is the commissioner's meeting. This is the people's meeting. I'm the loudest person because I have to drive through a racetrack right now. And I'm miserable. It's a horrible situation, but it made me aware of what we all could be facing again. We already lived with the landfill that leaked, all of that stuff, you know. And then she's like, oh, my family rolls their eyes. They've heard me too many years, but I'm like you. It's consuming because until this countywide zoning is stopped, I'm not stopping. I mean, until we pass it, I'm not stopping. And I will be on them. I will not let up, and they should know that by now. I can't believe that.